Another conversation for another time.
Right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Living Astrology with Janet Hickox. And today, Tam Veilleux. And it's time for us to grab our cups of coffee or tea and to sit back and relax so that we can tell you all about what is coming up for the month of June. I can't believe it, Tam. How is it already June? Or tomorrow is June 1st.
I don't get it. I say to my husband, where did the month go? Every month, where did it go? How are we already in June? I just put away Christmas decorations.
I could probably still find Christmas decorations.
Yep.
I mean, I started to put away my winter clothes the other day, and I thought better of it, thankfully, because this morning I woke up and my house was 56 degrees because we've
Oof.
left the bedroom window open. I'm
Yeah.
like, time to put the heat on. I'm not waiting until the sun comes out today to warm up my house. So I'm like,
Yeah.
thank God I have my long sleeve shirts and my long pants
Yeah.
that I didn't put away because the weather, even though it doesn't seem like June.
Well, we
Which is
got some.
fine. Fine. I love this weather universe.
Yeah. It's beautiful weather. I'm not going to complain. Everything's good. It's just that time really does seem to be speeding up. I
I know.
swear.
Yeah.
And I think actually there is some science that says we do gain a minute or two. So I can't remember how that goes, but they do say they actually think it's speeding slightly.
Yeah. Actually, earthquakes on the planet have, in fact, impacted the time, the clock. With that big Japanese earthquake that happened with the tsunami back in, I think it was
Yeah, no
2011,
kidding.
it raced the clock ahead by, I think it was 1.8 seconds. Now, that doesn't seem like much, but the whole planet is
Right.
resonating to faster
Wow.
time.
That's
So
fascinating.
it is fascinating. And of course, we have all kinds of things in our life that are going on. So not only personally, but globally. And it seems like every day there's a new drama or a new trauma going on.
Yeah,
And that
I think that's kind of a good place to start the conversation. Like, I'm
mhm.
actually holding up the energy almanac right here.
Woohoo!
I'm reminded that we're in 2023, and 2023 itself holds the energy of change.
Mhm.
But 23, the number 23 is it's the royal lion, and it's the courage to change, the courage to face change. And I feel like we're all needing to lean in on that. Everywhere you look, there are shifts taking place, whether it's relationships or government or people passing. I'm watching people pass, like, in my circle. Holy moly, it's crazy.
Really?
Yes.
Oh,
Oh, parents are just dropping. Parents of my friends are just, it's crazy. It seems inordinate number of people that the new reports of deaths all the time. Changes in the air, and that is part of 2023. Nobody ever said it was going to be easy. Baked in the cake is the courage to face the change you need.
well, then you're going to love what's coming up this June and into the end of July. And it's going to be interesting. But first, I have a comment from somebody that I want to share with you. Pam Zaruba, good morning. And good morning, Julie. It says, good morning, everyone. Hey, Tam, in the next almanac, it would be really cool to have an extra blank page each month to use as notes for Janet's weekly insights. I have loose notes all over. LOL.
This is the this is the 2023 one. Most months have lines, and I
Yeah, there's
believe
some.
I have made that request of my designer already. So Pam, you are on it. You can consider yourself futuristic. I feel the same way. I love to write in my book. So for 2023, not every single month has those beautiful lines, but many of them
Yeah,
do,
like this is
including May.
June's. This is
Yep, there's
June's.
May. Let's see, June. June has
No,
it.
yeah, June has it on page, yeah, I can't tell what that page is.
86, page 86. Yep.
86, yep. And then there are smaller chunks of it at, weekly.
Yes.
So that might work. But, the thing is the cost of the almanac to produce, right? If you start
Well,
putting in other
yeah.
pages, that just runs up
I
well,
hate to say it, but inflation will affect this year's almanac again. I really regret to say that, but it's true.
yeah, it's
Uh,
ridiculous the way
yeah.
inflation is going. But guess what? I'm not sure if I want to say it's going to get worse before it gets better, or if there is a getting better and then it gets worse. So let's talk about that for a minute, because this really affects everything that we're doing in the month of June, but it really doesn't start until June 10th. And we'll go back, everybody, and go start with the 1st. But I think there's this bigger thing going on in the backdrop that we all need to be aware of, and that is Pluto, my favorite friend, apparently.
Yeah.
And Pluto right now sitting at the 0 degrees. He didn't move very far into Aquarius back in March. But now he's been in retrograde. So he's retrograding and will go back into the sign of Capricorn on June 10th.
Yes.
Now, here's the thing. What's the first degree he hits as he goes back? And that's the 29th degree.
Mm-hmm.
And the 29th degree, so there are 2 karmic degrees, if you will, in the zodiac. The 0 degrees where he's sitting has been karmic too, but it is a degree that's full of promise, full of new ideas and possibilities not yet realized, right? Not yet realized. And we got to remember, Pluto is the death planet. So his process is about death and rebirth or regeneration. So he is in the process of transforming the landscape of whatever sign he's in. Well, now he's moving back into Capricorn and will sit at that 29th degree till late July. And the power of a degree like that is that it is, I heard a great word for it the other day, and I had to look up the word. It's effulgent.
Now, say it again.
Effulgent.
Effulgent.
Right? Which in my mind meant, okay, full, right? And overflowing. But it also has an explosive quality to it, like bursting with joy, right? We've heard that saying. So whenever a planet is at the 29th degree, we have this idea of bursting with all of the wisdom and all of the knowledge gathered through the entire sign. Now, when Pluto first moved into Capricorn in 2008, literally the economy started tanking, right? The mortgage crisis, the banking crisis, corporation after corporation breaking down, blah, blah, blah. Then we had COVID, and it starts even breaking down systems. And I mean, everything about that 15 years or so has been about breakdown. And now we come to a point where the breakdown is effulgent, right? Now we're seeing where we cannot go forward until we work through the things that like the economy that tanked. Yeah. So it'll be an interesting time, and it does this twice, right? From June 10th until the end of July, but then again in the fall into the beginning of the year before he moves back into Capricorn or Aquarius again. Yep. And that won't be until late January, early February. I can't remember the exact date. So this process of this effulgent breakdown is leading us to the regenerative energies of Aquarius.
And yes, so exciting, right? To me, and let's talk Capricorn. Everything from big business, government, institutional sized corporations,
military,
healthcare, everything, all that stuff.
Education,
fresh
everything.
Eyes, a new look, a rebirth of those, because hey, maybe we haven't done it so good in the past. And I get really excited about this. I do not mind the Plutonian areas of life that we have to address. I don't mind this at all. It's going to be super interesting to see what happens. I think the last eclipse that we had, the eclipse that we had in Scorpio was so powerful, and Pluto ruling Scorpio, of course, we can't deny the power of astrology. For all the people who poo-poo astrology, I have a list that I want to share with them of how powerful this stuff is. So let's see what unfolds around big business and our world.
Yeah, our world, governments, you're right. Everything that is systematized or categorized or institutionalized is what is changing. And
Yes.
it's so funny because I was just complaining loudly, I might add, to my husband this morning because my favorite astrology program. So I went to print up a chart for us to use today. And yesterday, when I printed it up, it printed up nicely, right? I set the settings so that I could have it on the whole page so I could see the whole thing. This morning, I went to do the same darn thing, and it wouldn't do it. No matter what I set the percentage at, it wouldn't get any bigger. So it turns out to be this, I threw it across the room because I was pissed. It turns out to be this little teeny tiny part of the page that this, no matter what, and no settings have been changed. Nothing has been changed. But somehow everything has changed.
Everything is
so frustrating.
The more things change, the more they stay the same.
Right. And right now it's chaos because all these things, we cannot depend on things anymore.
No, I think that's, you know what? I don't know about you, but technology has been straight up strange for at least a month. It's like the Mercury retrograde never ended. Today, I read an email that I wrote yesterday, and I didn't write it. I did dictation on my computer.
Yeah.
It basically wrote a sentence 3 different ways and wrote it 3 different times in the one email that I was writing. And I made the mistake of just sending the email. It read like I was a second grader. It's like, wow, I should have put my glasses on before I sent it, and B should always double check before I. Anyway,
right.
Yeah,
and you're right. It is.
It's in June, don't we?
It is like Mercury retrograde, because I think that's due to zero Aquarius Pluto. Technology is big on the scope at the moment. Just look at let's see, March 23rd was it that Pluto moved into Aquarius? Just look at the blossoming of AI in just this couple of months since then.
Yes.
It blows me away every time I think about it.
Yep. That's a good point. Wow.
Right. It gives us an inroad, right? That Pluto, that first brush with Pluto into Aquarius has brought us this gigantic leap into AI, and literally everybody's into it. Everybody.
I think you are absolutely right. That is an observation I hadn't made. I love that.
Right. It's new and exciting right now.
Yeah.
But the next pass, when we get back to 0 degrees again,
now
we're going to start to see what might be some of the problems with that.
Totally. I actually don't love AI. I've put off going there, but I know a lot of people are using it.
I know. I played with it to write an article. I typed in literally Jupiter at gate 27 in human design. And then I told it to write me a medium paper. And OMG, it did. And then I was like, that's crazy. Now, where does plagiarism come in? Where did it get all that information? Well, the idea is you're supposed to go back in and write it or add to it and things like that. So it's really fascinating. It's potential, but the potential for problems is even worse because somebody could just take a paper, send it on out.
Yep.
Is it true? Are the facts straight?
Right.
Does it make sense? So we have to watch that. All right, June 1st. I mean, like we leap right in to June with Jupiter at the North Node. North Node conjunction.
Oh, I didn't have that. Oh my.
Right. I had to go back. I went back to when I did the astrology workshop for 2023. And I went, oh my gosh. I knew Jupiter, I could see it on the chart that they were coming closer together. And tomorrow, Jupiter is conjunct the North Node.
Wow.
And in Taurus, right?
Yep.
So remember the nodes, they shift backwards through a sign.
Yep.
And Jupiter's going forward. So we have a convergence of the two of them, one coming from the higher degrees and the other one moving to the higher degrees. And in a human design, we see it at gate 27. And I prefer to look at it that way. And then you can kind of add your 2 cents in here too about this. But the gate 27 is called the gate of accountability in quantum human design. And I really like that because the idea is behind 27 is that it's about nurturing oneself and nurturing others, but without mothering, right? So we want to be able to lift people up to help them to help themselves. That's the accountability piece. And we can do that in many different ways, right? We can, look at if we took a big global thing like homelessness, right? That's a big thing. How do we, we could feed them, we could build houses for them, but how do we help them to help themselves? That's the accountability piece. But we don't want to not feed them or not clothe them or help them. That's the opposite end of the gate in the negative shadow part of it. But we don't want to mother them either. So in our own personal lives, that's one of the lessons that we are learning with Jupiter coming together to the North Node is how do we take care of ourselves?
Interesting. And that's from the human design perspective. Now, my brain, my limited knowledge compared to yours would look at Jupiter in Taurus, conjunct the North Node, also in Taurus retrograde, like some kind of maybe internalizing, you could say, like self-worth issues, right?
Yep.
Which would
value.
be alignment. Value. Yeah, like what you're talking about there, as well as I'm wondering about maybe some feeling of hope or optimism in resources.
Could be that too, right? We have lots of themes that we can choose from. Here's another big one from Taurus is simplicity.
I love that. Yes. Good call.
Decomplexifying or simplifying our lives.
Yep.
Right? The simplest is usually the best. Why do we have to build system on system on system? They become redundant. They become super baggage filled, and simple is usually best. So we have that theme as well.
I really forget to connect Taurus with simplifying. And maybe that's why I'm so good at it. I always thought it was my Virgo-ness, but it's probably my Taurus moon.
It's all the earth signs. All the earth signs are going to in some way have that quality of, simplification. But Taurus really holds that.
Yep.
And because, when you think about Taurus, it's the first earth sign.
Yes.
And so it's down to the earth. It's grounded to the earth. And it's choosing the simple joys and pleasures of life. It's sensual, right? All the senses. And in a way, our world has gotten so beyond the senses, right? Because now we're in this fake world, a lot of times, kids disappearing into virtual reality and not knowing how to live in the real reality.
Yes.
So this might be a call for us to, reground everything, bring it back in.
I would ask you, like, how long will we feel that transit, that moment? Will it be a couple days?
It'll be several days. Yeah, I think it'll be several days because Jupiter's not moving at a clip that, reminds us of, how fast the world is. He is moving, probably a degree or so every week. Okay. But so he's going to sit here. The North Node is going to clip on. Now, the North Node doesn't change out of Taurus until July. So this impact could be, stretched out over a couple of weeks. But like any astrology transit of note, and this one I think is of note, it triggers something or catalyzes something within us that then takes its time to play out. Yeah, exactly. So we don't know how Jupiter, like look to where Taurus is in your own personal chart, people, right? And where's Taurus? What house is it in? Because that's going to tell you the part of your life that this is going to play out in.
Yep.
Right? Where's that North Node Jupiter connection happening? In my chart, I think it's the 11th house. So networks and communities and dreams and goals and aspirations and that kind of thing. Where's Taurus in your chart?
12 degrees in the 5th house.
5th house, joy, creativity, play, taking time for yourself, your children. The fun house. You have it in the fun house.
I have it in the fun house.
Yeah. So no wonder you and I both kind of played out part of May, right? In vacation times or things like that. It's kind of interesting to see how that plays out. But that's the big news I have, just jumping right in. And then, of course, we go to the full moon.
Yeah, which is on the 3rd, which I love this. I always love the Sag moon. Um, and I remember that there's something, I have it right here. I even have my charts, Janet. I'm so happy.
Oh, and hey, I
what's that?
hear that you are now doing art solar returns for people who I've done readings for.
Yes, I am. I love it. Janet does the reading. I break it down into beautiful pictures, and it's really, really fun. And it's a poster that you keep nearby. Yeah.
I love it. I love
Thank
it,
you,
love it,
thank
love
you.
it.
The full moon is Sag, but there was something about it. Hold on a second. I'm actually looking at my notes. Moon trine Mars, by the
Mhm.
way. Mars was active in that one. I can't remember why I said like I really want to talk about that. And maybe it's because I always feel like the Sag with the idealism and the hope and the optimism part of it playing out.
I bet it was because you noted it was at a T-square.
No, I didn't notice that. So
So
this is the thing. Let me be really honest about this. I don't write the moons. I have somebody else who writes our moon articles. So I have to go back and reread the chart, and it depends how much time I have and all of that. No, T-square. Let's talk about that.
So if you look at, let me see if I can show this without. There we go. You can see I drew
right
in the T-square. So what you have at the point is Saturn. Now, and then of course the opposition of the sun and moon, which is the very definition of the full moon. But it's kind of off a bit, right? It's a little bit displaced. The moon and the sun are at 13 degrees, 18 minutes or something like that of their respective signs, Gemini and Sag. But Saturn is at 7 degrees of Pisces. So it's still, that's 5 degrees, 6 degrees. That's still within
6
orb.
degrees.
Yeah, that's still within orb.
Yep.
And especially, when you have the weight of the full moon. So it's really pointing at the things that Saturn is teaching us at the moment. So we have Sagittarius and Gemini, which is very knowledge oriented and information oriented, communication oriented. I'm just philosophies and beliefs at one end, and the changing of those things on the other end. So there's a lot packed into that full moon, and both sides pointing at Saturn makes me think about where are our fears of change coming up.
Interesting. Now mentioning that, Pluto is sextile the moon here. So that, I mean, again, dealing with transformation, right?
Yep. I lost Pluto. Where's Pluto?
Yeah.
Oh, there it is. Yeah, well, it's sextile the moon, but barely, because it's at 0 degrees and the moon is at 13. But if you read any of the more in-depth psychological astrologers, they'll say that Pluto's orb is up to 15 degrees. So
interesting.
Yeah, because it's so powerful
That's what
at
I was going to
changing.
say. Must be its power. Yeah.
Its power. So I'm not sure that I would say that's a big part of it, but I would definitely say that Saturn plays this role here. And remember, in Pisces, what is he teaching us? Let down the walls. The biggest wall is fear.
Yep.
To be able to distinguish between the real and the ideal, or the real and the not real.
Right. Very Piscean.
Very Piscean themes, right? Being creative, of course, and using our imaginations to solve our problems, but in practical ways. So using that as a motif, then we could think about how much misinformation is possibly out there about anything you can think of. Anything, right?
Absolutely. Oh, I think there's loads of it.
All right. And people's motivations for that information, right? What is the motivation for sharing certain political information or medical information or whatever, right? There's always going to be a slant. I think that Gemini Sagittarius axis helps us to flesh that out. What's real for you? What makes sense for you? What's your take on it? We want to know, from your point of view, but everybody should understand that there is no one truth.
Right. I agree with that. It's all based on perspective and point of view. And your history is what creates your perspective and point of view.
Yeah. And your history should not be used as a weapon or a reason to stay in victim mode.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well said.
Yeah.
Yes.
Your history is your history, and yes, shit happens.
Yep. Yep. It's about making peace with it.
Make peace with it and move on. The balance point, because a T-square always needs the balance point.
Right.
Now, there's no planet sitting at the balance point, so we just have to look at, okay, the sign on the balance would be Virgo.
Right.
So it would be about, planting your feet firmly on the ground. Right?
Practical.
Information is all great, and watery feeling and compassion is all great, but how do we practically express those things? So this full moon kind of feeds into all of that. But here's the funny thing. The moon during this full moon will be at the gate 5, which is a gate about routines and habits and traditions, right? The way that we organize our lives. It has a Virgo feel to it, but it's a Sagittarius gate.
But it's also a very Sag feel. When I think Sagittarius, I think routine.
Yep. And, how do we organize ourselves around that and have it be healthy without getting stuck in the pattern? Right? Getting stuck in the pattern. So we're breaking up the pattern. When I looked at this in the astrological mandala, which is the Sabian symbols, that's what other people might know this as, it says the Great Pyramid and the Sphinx. I'm like, okay. So then I was thinking about that and I'm going, well, the Great Pyramid and the Sphinx are some of the greatest mysteries that we have on this planet. Like, we think we know all the facts, right? But then there's this water line that shows up on the Sphinx, right? And nobody's really, alternative historians will address that, but the regular historians won't address that. So we have this idea that science has its own slant, and what's needed is to make it more rounded so that we have the power of occult knowledge, if you will, or metaphysical knowledge blended into the scientific to create a story that's coherent. It's the power of our spiritual ancestry that's a part that we've sort of lost. We packaged it up in religions, and made it sort of dogmatic. So this might also be our full moon of addressing the places within us where we have become too dogmatic.
I think that makes sense for Sagittarius. I'm always trying to just keep simplifying it. For Sagittarius, being dogmatic is one of maybe what I would call their shadows. So that, I guess that does make sense. Those Sabian symbols, you really have to think through them. It's good that you have that headspace that you can do that. And
sometimes they make sense and sometimes they don't, but in this respect they really did, because the power of human design, or astro design I'm calling it, because I'm blending both astrology and human design, is that we can see that gate 5 is where this is going to hit us. So it's in the things that we do on autopilot, right? The things that we believe on autopilot without ever questioning, right? Is this a healthy habit that I'm invested in? Is this a routine that's supportive of what I am? What traditions am I holding myself to that I don't even really, resonate with anymore?
Right.
So it's a big full moon.
It is. Yeah. I love the Sag moon. I really, really do.
Yeah.
Awesome.
And so that's at this personal level, but at the bigger level, we also have to learn how to address world crises or government crises and things like that with a much more spiritual principle. Ethics is big with Sagittarius.
Yep.
Right. So it makes me also think about walking our talk.
Right. Yes. Yeah, I understand that. And right now I just went back to Jupiter conjunct the North Node and the values, the simplicity and all that. And we'll still be in that energy. And here we are having this full moon that might address world ethics. I think that's being our economy is at play on June 1st, or, in that transit, right? Taurian.
Yep.
that's interesting. That,
Yeah.
I mean, that, let's see what shows up, right?
Well, and isn't it interesting that here in the USA, and I know some of you are listening from other countries, but here in the USA, we have the huge fight for the debt ceiling or debt limit. The
Which will
whole,
show up on the 1st.
yeah. Actually, there's this deal that's already in the making, and now it's needing to be, fleshed out and whatever else they do, fight about it. And
I think they vote today, and the result will arrive for us in the morning.
so timely.
So timely. Ah, that's fascinating.
So timely. And the whole idea of fake money. I mean, we're just making up dollars, right?
Mhm.
But anyway, it's big and it's fun to watch the outer world mimicking what's going on with the astrology, or the astrology driving the things that go on here. Or
So then let's continue like that thread of Jupiter conjunct North Node, full moon regarding ethics, and then on the 4th of June, I marked down Mercury in Taurus conjunct Uranus in Taurus. So won't we be talking, analyzing, looking at the economy?
maybe so, but Mercury rules the lower mind. So, the mind that we think of as the human, and then Uranus, the higher mind, right? So the higher spiritual mind coming into connection with the lower mind. And it could be spectacular. It could be so creative.
That's what I'm saying. We'll be integrating information from the combination of the Jupiter North Node and the full moon. Like it's going to be in our awareness somehow. That's how I see it.
And again, wherever Taurus is in your chart is where this expression of I think of epiphany and aha moments when I see this. Uranus. Now, we're also one day past the full moon, and the full moon is also often a revelatory kind of aspect.
Yes.
So what's revealed then in this to us as individuals, but also in the grander scheme of things?
I'm saying, like, let's mark our calendars for the 4th of June.
Yep.
Honestly, take some time to revel in it and figure out what is being revealed to me.
And the moon is still in Sagittarius on the 4th.
Right.
So we still have the Sagittarian moon with us. And if we're talking economy, the next day on the 5th, Venus moves into Leo, and Venus rules.
Venus in Leo,
yeah, Venus in Leo. And she's going to spend an inordinate amount of time here.
Right.
Because she's moving into retrograde as we get later into the month of July.
Yeah.
And she's here until at least October, November, I believe it is. So we're going to have a lot of Venus in Leo lessons. And Leo, it can be like overdone.
Yep.
It can be over large, over generous, magnanimous. It should be interesting because Mars is also in Leo.
Yeah. I'm sure that I've lived through this kind of transit before, but I really don't remember it. I'm very interested to see what this will bring up. Now that I pay so much attention to astrology, I'm sure everybody listening feels the same way. Now that you know so much about astrology, you can watch for and witness and make notes about how these transits affect you. So Mars and Venus in Leo should sure be interesting.
Yes. The last time they were both together in Leo would have been about 2 years ago. Yeah, because
I can't remember right now. I'd have to sit and spend time reflecting.
Yeah. Well, I know that the day that my son died in July 2 years ago, Mars and Venus were in a conjunction in Leo.
Wow.
And I had been watching that build from June, and that conjunction happened. Now, this time I don't believe they're going to actually conjunct, because Mars will, Venus is in the process of slowing down. And they may come close, but Mars has been there already, so he's moving ahead. But that's the last time that the two bodies were in the sign of Leo.
Interesting for you, huh?
Yeah, I've been kind of thinking about how do I feel about this? Is there some other, big thing? But, they're inner planets. It has to be personalized to each individual, and to where is Leo in your chart, right? Yep. What's going on in Leo? So we'll see how that plays out. But again, that would have been the last time, if you're thinking back, it would be about 2 years ago when this particular transit happened. Now, then, of course, on the 10th, we have Pluto retrograde moving backward into Capricorn.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And we've already talked all about that. So
We have.
the very next day after that, Mercury moves into Gemini, a sign he loves. He loves Mercury. I mean, Mercury loves Gemini.
Mercury loves Gemini, yes.
And it gives me an idea for a TV show. Mercury loves Gemini. Remember Joni loves Chachi? Mercury loves Gemini.
That's funny. That's funny. Yeah. So Mercury in Gemini, and we have those busy brains again, right? Talkative, learning, and urge to learn and educate again, I would think, right?
And yeah, absolutely. And share. Funny thing though, Mercury then immediately moves into a trine with Pluto. So are we sharing transformative, life-changing information during at least that day? But of course, it starts the transit that way. So it is the potential for the expression. And Venus that day is square Jupiter. So Venus squaring Jupiter is usually not that, like squares are usually very challenging, but now we have the two benefic planets coming together in a square. And it really makes me think about overdoing things.
Sure. Yeah,
going
that
too
makes
far.
a lot of sense. Yep.
Yeah, and with the weight of Pluto moving back to Capricorn, Mercury moving into Gemini, are we seeing a fight breaking out in the whole idea of the economy? And
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Just for reference, that's around the 12th.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Interesting. Yep. I mean, I can see how I would agree with that analysis for sure.
Well, especially with the moon moving into Aries late that day, or early that day, very early my time, 6:21 a.m. So what's that, 9:21 for those of you on the East Coast. And Aries, is Mars territory, kind of light the match to something.
Yeah.
So I'm a little iffy on that. The whole idea of
red day on the calendar.
It's green on mine, but I don't know if that's because my personal day, it looks really good, but I don't know. Anyway, I would just be watchful. The potential is stellar, right? The potential is very transformative.
Yeah.
But given the political climate that we have right now, and the potential for some people on far right and far left to sort of sink things that are trying to get forward. Yeesh, I don't know.
But it's a moment in time. So
it is.
We keep moving forward for the next great transit.
It's a process, right? And the process is such. Now, this begs a question, begs a little bit more detail on Aquarian energy. Just for a second, I'm going to go take a little side trip here.
Yep.
So I was reading a really, interesting article about Aquarian energy. And I don't know who said this. The quote wasn't from an astrologer. It was an astrologer quoting someone back in history, saying, about Aquarius, that they have this love for humanity. It's the people I can't stand. So that is so Aquarian, right? To be so quirky as to really see the highest and best for humanity, but all you people suck.
Yep. That actually just felt like my daughter said that. Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Awesome. Humanity, yay, but you get out of my face.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So anyway, we have to keep that in mind too, as time goes on. Yes, it's going to be about humanity, but I feel like the power isn't going to be in humanity. It's going to be in the groups of people that come together to forward ideas. What we now call like grassroots movements and things like that.
I think you're right about that. And I've been paying attention to a lot of, I'll call those grassroots that are forming. And I'm seeing, I just had a conversation with somebody yesterday who's headed to Guatemala for a couple of months to learn how to build houses out of trash to help people who are poor. Yeah. To help people who are poor.
Cool.
And she wants to bring it over and help Costa Rica. Like I was blown away. Like I said, wow, how humanitarian. That is the most beautiful thing I've heard.
Yeah.
And there are people, and she's just one of several that I've been reading about who are doing amazing things with their lives to help the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing things can come from grassroots types of movements. But I think what we're really seeing is like even in our own government, think about the power that what was it when Kevin McCarthy was being voted on to become the Speaker of the House, and how delicate an operation that was, because he had this whole group of people on his I guess you'd say it was on the right, I think, and they wanted certain things and he had to make concessions in order to get there. So we have this real opportunity for diplomacy and for working together for the common good, as long as people don't get so caught in their agendas, right? We're serving a bigger population here. So what does that mean? It means that the things that we do have to benefit the people, like building homes for people who can't afford them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
Beautifully
anyway,
said. Beautifully
huge
said.
thing.
Nice segue.
Into what? Tell me what you want to talk about next.
That was the 12th. And honestly, for me, I went right into the moon on the 18th. The new moon in Gemini. Everybody have a party.
Have party in the Geminis.
We call that effective evaluation in the energy almanac. I do want to share this really quickly. This is the illustration for June. And I just love the little tree doing upward dog.
Downward dog, upward facing.
This is upward.
Upward facing dog.
Yeah. But the moon is called effective evaluation. This moon is at 26 Gemini on the 18th. And I mean, Gemini, we're talking I don't actually know what all the extra transits are unless I look at my little chart and do a quick study of it.
I drew up the chart. So but I also wanted to point out that before before the new moon that day, Saturn turns retrograde.
Oh, yes, that's right. I meant to mention that. Sorry, you're right.
Yeah. So actually in my almanac, or in my chart here, the new moon is on the 17th because it's at 9:37 p.m. So for the West Coast, Alaska, Hawaii, all of those people, we are all experiencing the new moon on the 17th, but everybody basically from the East Coast further, actually Central Time and Mountain Time will also experience it on the 17th. And everybody further from the East Coast east will experience it on the 18th. And that's just because of the timing right. of the moon. But Saturn turns retrograde on the 17th at 8:56 a.m. my time. So 11:56 a.m. for those of you on the East Coast.
Yep.
And that's huge because Saturn, when he's retrograde, takes us on an inward journey of strengthening our cores, if you will, our core, right? So it's funny. That's just funny with upward facing dog, because a lot of that is core strength.
That's true. Oh, see, look at how you just relate these things. That's amazing.
It's just like, oh yeah, okay, we're strengthening our core.
That's Gemini mind. Yeah. So again, the summer retrograde season is upon us, right?
Correct.
Later we'll have Neptune going retrograde on the 30th, but yeah, the Saturn retrograde in Pisces, like I am curious about this one. Does it bring us to questioning ourselves, questioning our vision, or strengthening the foundation of our goals and dreams? Do we look at our spiritual practices and ask, how are we doing with that? 2023 is, your answers are within.
Yeah.
The whole thing is go in for answers. So
it's go in for answers. And it's also about, so remember that Saturn in Pisces purpose is to bring down the walls that divide us.
Yep.
And those walls in, literal sometimes, but also fear within us. So when Saturn turns retrograde, now we're looking within, and where are the places that we have feared to tread?
Mm-hmm.
Right? Mm-hmm. What have we been afraid to let go of? Mm-hmm. What have we been afraid to move forward to? So we have some very interesting back and forth energy that we're going to be working with, or inward facing energy. It's funny because upward dog, you're looking up at the sky.
Yeah.
And Saturn is kind of, taking us on that inward trek. And then we started this about the new moon that day is a gypsy emerging from the forest wherein her tribe is encamped. Unpack that one.
Right.
So gypsies, transient. Right? They move around, right? They never stay in one place. And when we're talking about a new moon, it's the potential for something new, right? The new, the possible, the opening, the beginning of something. And is it that we're moving into a higher state of consciousness? But this is a transition state that we're in this moon, right? We're not there. We haven't really grasped to that higher consciousness yet, but we're really aware that we can't stay back in the old consciousness.
So wait, now you're taking this from the Sabian symbol based off the gypsy. Interesting. So I don't know if I can even follow the entire thread that my brain just made. So I'm tying it to Saturn and Pisces. We're going in, we're releasing fear, and Gemini moon. What are we learning about ourselves? What can we learn?
What are we talking about?
Be talking about our fear. I'm wondering if that's all going to tie in together, and now we get to create a new pathway, new moon, new pathway, initiating a new version of ourselves under a new understanding. That's a lot, though.
Right. It really does point to the mind, though.
It does.
Right.
Yeah.
Gemini, the mind, and how powerful our minds are in convincing us that we are not as good as we are, right? Or that we need to do more, or that, getting us caught up in old things.
But that ties in with the fear of Saturn and Pisces.
Correct. So now we have the possibility with the mind to elevate it, right, to raise the frequency, to raise the consciousness, and see ourselves from a different perspective.
Yeah.
The key word, how in the astrological mandala, he often comes up with the keyword, and to be honest, I can't see how this actually plays out, but the word he comes up with is repolarization. Oh. And yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's because polarizing has been such a thing in this world, in this country, that I'm not sure how he's bringing polarizing energy to play in a positive way. Everything else seems positive, but repolarization, I don't know. Except to say that one way that we could repolarize without being polarizing is to come back to a balance of heaven and earth, right? Or spiritual and physical, or higher self, ego self.
Two new polar points, no matter what, right?
Yeah.
And I was on the thread of thinking like, joy and happiness or joy and bliss are two ideas that are similar, but at the same time they have different flavors. Does that make them polar? I don't know. But he does that Sabian symbol stuff. Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty powerful. So then we go to human design and we look at what gate is this going to be in. And here's where I think we get a glimmer. And that's because it's at the gate 11, which is a gate that is about the light, right? In its highest expression in the gene keys, it's light. In its lowest expression, it's obscurity. But I love this gate because in gene keys, Richard Rudd says that if even there's a pinpoint of light and we focus on the light, it will obliterate the dark. So it's about what are we focusing on?
Yeah. And you wrote that in our book. I remember I highlighted that.
Oh, good for me.
I literally highlighted that. This week's shadow calls us to focus on the light and not the dark. And then you had an entire paragraph about that. I always go through and highlight the gift and shadow along with key astrology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
See, yeah. So the 11 is very powerful that way. And, it's real easy for us as individuals when something bad or negative happens in our life or even in the world that we look at the news cycle, right? They just focus so much on what's that saying? If it bleeds, it leads, or something like that.
Yes.
They focus the attention and the information all on the negative.
Yeah.
Very rarely are we hearing about, oh, these great ideas that people have for solving homelessness or solving the trash problem, like your housing lady there. They, so we have to learn individually then to focus on the light, because if you focus where they are trying to take us is on the dark, which holds us to that lower frame of mind. And this is our opportunity to move to the higher frame of mind.
I love that. I love that. And the following week you said new seeds take time to grow. I almost feel like it's almost like trust the darkness. When you plant your seed in the soil, it's dark, and you can trust the darkness to some degree, but know that there's light on the other side. I don't know, just really cool. I loved what you wrote this month.
Nice, thank you. When we get to the new moon is also right across from the galactic center.
Oh, what does that mean?
So the galactic center is the point at which new energy is emitted to this planet, not just this planet, to this whole solar system, but the galactic center is the source of those cosmic rays that have a mutative effect on the planet, right? As well as other, things that are happening out there, like, supernovas and things like that. They emit, but the neutrino stream essentially is coming out of that galactic center. And it's the neutrinos that have the mutative effect on humans and on life in general. And then with it in opposition to the new moon is that we're taking in mutative energy. We're taking in potential. We're taking in possibilities. And if we can focus those possibilities on the light, or we can focus on the light of those things, we can bring them into something new, bring them into reality.
Which kind of makes for a really healing sort of moon. I mean, you don't typically think of Gemini as being a healing type thing, but, with the Gemini and the Saturn retrograde in Pisces, we're talking about addressing fear and looking at it, but coming out of it with new light, you're talking about it being transformative. So maybe we could really heal something here if we really choose to work it.
Yeah, well, Gemini is an idea sign.
Right.
And one of the other things about gate 11 is it's filled with ideas. And, everybody has a gate 11. But those of us who have gate 11 defined, we don't just have a dipper full of ideas for this lifetime. We have the whole freaking ocean full of ideas. So we have this pool of potential through which our minds can be bringing in, a la the galactic center, new, maybe out of the ordinary, out of the box thinking, and ideas that become possibilities. And what's Gemini do with it? It communicates that, it shares that with others, and, starts this moment of, sharing that takes outward through the world.
Yes. So, speaking it into reality. Speaking is the first step, right?
Right. So I think that new moon is pretty stellar. It does have a square to Neptune, which means that we're also going to have to follow our intuition pretty powerfully toward those ideas that make sense, those ideas that, are for us to take forward, because, we're getting ideas all the time, but they're not all for us to take action on.
Right.
So we'll have to use our intuition pretty much on what it is that we're meant to take action on. And then there is a sextile to Eris. Now, I've also been doing a deep dive into Eris.
Oh.
I'm not sure I'm ready to share all that yet, except to say she is the spiritual warrior. She is the feminine Mars. In fact, Eris and Mars were brother and sister.
Oh.
So if we think of them as brother and sister, he's the masculine action in the world that's very much more slanted toward the aggressive. And she's the feminine warrior her actions are very much more assertive, right? Not aggressive, but not shy and holding back either. but she uses, where he's using raw masculine power, she's using wisdom and might. So it's an interesting thing to
I
have
get
with the
it.
new moon, right? That
And you said is she conjunct? What was her position?
she is in a sextile
A
to the new
sextile.
moon.
Oh, nice. Very
Yeah.
nice. Okay.
Yeah. So she's still at the end of Aries,
Yeah.
right? So she's bringing
Oh.
some new action, boldly
Yeah.
pioneering kind of things. And in with the new moon, are we able to take those ideas and act boldly and be wise about those things that we take action on?
Yeah.
So anyway, cool stuff.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah. That's a lot packed into one moon, and we're running out of time. We have 5 minutes.
I know, 5 minutes. So let's pick and choose. What do you want to go to next?
I think we ought to just mention that on the 26th, Mercury goes into Cancer.
Mhm.
Some subtle communication happening for us, probably
Emotional.
emotional for sure, and verbalizing our emotion, no doubt. Of course, we mentioned briefly the retrograde. Neptune goes retrograde on the 30th.
Yep.
Those are
But
the big ones that I would want to mention. Of course, the solstice, the 21st.
right.
Like everybody
Yes.
should honor that, right?
Indeed. The day after that, on the 22nd, Jupiter changes the gate he is sitting at. He's been sitting at 27, the nurturing gate, right? Where we're learning to become accountable for our own nurturing and teaching others how to be accountable for their own nurturing. Then he moves into the gate 24, and the 24 is about rationalization. It is what we call a gratitude gate. It's really about tapping in rather than rationalizing why things have happened. Look more to the blessings that have occurred because of the experiences that you've had. So Jupiter will have us focusing more on that gratitude, the blessings, the being rational, but not rationalizing, which rationalizing sometimes leads us to compromise ourselves. We'll rationalize why that program isn't working the way it should work, instead of looking at what is the actions or non-actions that on our part that have led us to not have the result that we wanted. So it's pretty complex, and that shift is moving us up into the ajna, which is the brain, the analyzing, criticizing part. So we'll have to talk more about that at some point. And then the very next day after that, the nodes shift. And in human design, the nodes shift about every 3 to 3.5 months. And they're shifting into an area of innovation. But the south node is shifting into corruption.
Ooh.
Yeah. Now, this is not corruption like we think of, shysters out there in the world. This is corruption like when your computer software misreads the code,
Sure.
right? It's a misreading of the code. So what we're going to have to learn to do with Jupiter is to focus on the innovation, but also see where we have misinterpreted things. And again, a whole nother conversation that we could have about that. The day that Neptune turns retrograde, which is on the 30th, is also the day that Mercury conjuncts the Sun, representing the halfway point in the Mercury cycle. That means we're halfway to the next retrograde. Hallelujah. So much.
So much. I know. Intuitive impressions and expressions is what we called it in the Energy Almanac. Probably due to some of the Cancer energy, the Piscean energy that's going on this month.
Yeah.
Plenty to look forward to, especially the moons. The Sag and Gemini moons, I think, are really exciting. I don't know.
I like them. I do. Well, I'm a Gemini, so of course I like them.
And I'm a Sag rising, so
of course you like them.
I want to share with people how I thought about this. This is how I take notes on the conversations with Janet and I. This is 1 to 31. I write the transits and keywords that we speak, and then I put this onto my actual calendar so that I can be fully aware of what's going on and when. I also spent some time thinking, just literally thinking, not meditating, thinking about how this might affect me. Meditation is for a whole other thing sometimes with me.
But don't you have a defined ajna?
I don't know. You tell me.
Oh, I don't know. I don't have your chart in front of
Yeah,
me.
I
But
don't
if
know
you
either.
do, you're designed as a thinker. So it's totally supportive of you.
Yeah,
Anybody out there who
that
has
makes
an
sense to me.
ajna defined has to think.
I also want to just really quickly make an offer. I do still have some 2023 almanacs left, and I am at the point that I'm going to put them on sale for anybody who's watching this show. And you're like, my friend's going to love this book. You can email me, tam@choosebigchange.com, and I will sell you this for $25 plus shipping. And shipping is media mail is $5. So basically it'd be $30. And you can have this book for a gift for a friend. There is still, 25 weeks left that you can get all the predictions, all the moons, all the human design that Janet wrote. So
All
share
the
this
good
with
stuff.
your friends.
Share it with your friends. I put that up on the screen. So, I put it up on Facebook. So let's show it from, there we go, on YouTube. I think we have more people on YouTube.
Yeah.
And you actually shared yours to your YouTube channel this morning. So there, everybody can see that now.
Yep.
And thanks, Tam. That's a great offer. And literally, these books get used.
Yeah, they do. They really do.
They're meant to be used, right? They're meant to be used. All right. Well, that is it from us this morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for being here, Tam.
Yes.
Let's take a quick look for July. We will actually be together again in June. Hey, I can look at this calendar without trying to do that. June 28th.
Yay.
We'll be talking about July, which should be an interesting month with Venus turning retrograde and the North Node shifting into Aries Libra.
Big month. We got a lot of work to do collectively this year. That's how I say it.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. It's a great way to look at it. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. Enjoy your day.
I love these conversations. Bye-bye.